Hello everyone and welcome to today's art stream. I hope you can hear me okay. I hope everything's working alright, fingers crossed. Yes, welcome, and we'll be getting right into it in a second. First of all, thank you so much for bearing with me last week. I did want to stream twice, but things are pretty manic right now between loads of different reasons. So thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully this week we will get both streams in and everything will be great. So thank you very much for joining me today. And yeah, we're going to get stuck in. Today I am working on a few portraits from a batch of party portraits for someone, and these are the first two characters. The first one I just finished last night. They are a half elf. I'm not actually sure what class they are, but given by the vibes I want to say like monk or paladin or something, I'm not sure. The second character, who we're going to be working on today, is I believe they are an elf warlock? Maybe. Either way, they're a fancy goth elf. And we're going to be working on the colouring for that character today. I also have a few other pieces I might work on today. As a little, think about I'll probably finish this one before we're done streaming. So, these are the other two I might be working on. This is a turtle who is just adorable. I've never actually been commissioned to do a turtle before, so this is really fun. So I might be working on them after I finished the elf character. Another option is, another portrait I'm working on is a Dragonborn. When I paint Dragonborn, I like to really lean into the more draconic looks, so that's why they're very draconic and less kind of traditional kind of player's handbook Dragonborn. But anyway, that's just a few other things that I might kind of move on to today. But for now, we're going to work on this chap. Thank you so much, Verma, for the sub. That's incredibly kind of you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to go up and grab the refs for these lovely characters. Here we go. Yep, alright, so as you can see, here's our line art for that character. It's currently set to multiply. We're just going to go in straight away, making a new layer for the skin tone. This particular elf is quite pale. In fact, they're quite washed out. So we're going to start with quite a pale flesh tone. I might change this. I often do mess around with my styling colours, but for now we just need to get those base colours down. So let's go. And thank you so much to Neldella Teleyal for the subscription as well. That's incredibly kind. Massive thank you for that. It really does make all the difference, and yeah, it means a ton to small streamers like me. And yeah, fingers crossed, back to a regular schedule. We were doing so good in most of April. I streamed like twice a week every week, and I was really proud of that, so I don't want to lose that momentum, Chili Draws, thank you very much. Oh my goodness, we got a hype train. Let's go. Thank you so much for the bits, Verma. That's very kind as well. You're really on fire today. Yeah, I am massively a fan of making Dragonborn a lot more animalistic. It might just be the inner child in me who adores dinosaurs, who wants to make them a lot more, I don't know, creaturey. I prefer that to I don't know, I've never been a massive fan of the more human dragon hybrid look. I'm like, give me tails and horns, don't give me weird tentacle hair. That's not what we want. CBGS, thank you so much. That's very, very kind. We're on a level 2 hype train, whatever that means, but it sure seems fun, doesn't it? Yeah, Verma, you and me both. I am looking forward to getting back into my regular schedule, and I'm very happy that you've been able to join me to kick that off today. And now, as usual, putting in base colors can be a bit tedious. I know there's probably quicker ways to do this in Photoshop, but I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to my art, so I like to kind of hand paint a lot of things just to make sure things are how I want them. Yeah, I mean, I can see how for some builds, the tentacle hair on Dragonborn could look cool, like if you're going for a really swampy green Dragonborn kind of theme. But as a general rule, I would always rather put fur or feathers on my Dragonborn. In fact, I'm hoping to play my new Dragonborn D&D character tomorrow in a little game that I've been invited to. And she is the one I uploaded last week, who looks like a Velociraptor. Although technically she was more inspired by Dakota Raptor and Deinonychus. Oh no, I need to stop talking about dinosaurs. I could be here all day. Hey, Orvin, thank you so much. Alright, I'm just going to fill in a few of these small areas and then I'll carry on just popping colour down the neck. This is not a bad starting shade. I don't like to go super pale, even on pale skinned characters, just because it can make portraits look very washed out. Even if you've got pale skin under different lighting, like, it's never white. Okay, that's the neck. Let's got a little bit of the side of the neck here. I might end up going over this with some hair if I feel it sticking out too much. Do I feel it sticking out too much? Yeah, I kind of do actually. So I'm just going to undo what I just did. Pop, 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 pop. Go back to that line art. I'm just going to basically just make sure I'm using the same colour I've used for the rest of the line art. There we go. Grab, I think I was using 14s for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to do the hair getting caught on the back of the collar and then coming down. So we'll see a bit of the neck, but a lot of it is covered up by hair. There, I think that looks a bit better. Oh, Nichasa, thank you so much. This is probably a good stream to watch then, as I'll be doing my slightly simpler colouring cell, which is I find is quite a nice starting point, and then you can move on to doing the super painterly stuff. So yeah, this is a good one to tune into. Also, just to let folks know, I've been really bad at keeping my YouTube channel updated with VODs. Last week I went and dropped a bunch of VODs onto my YouTube channel, including last week's stream, so if you've been wanting to catch up with that, you should now be a lot more to watch on there. Okay, there is all of our skin filled in. The next thing I tend to do when I'm shading portraits like this, once I've got that base skin tone all just kind of filled in, very colour by numbers, you want to make sure that this little button is clicked. It's the alpha lock, which basically means you can't paint outside of the area you've just put down. It just helps speed things massively up and stop you making like a mess and stuff. Next thing I'm going to do, the first step to shading the face, I'm going to start from the colour we've used for the base. Forgive me. I seem to be like frog in the throat today. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to inch the colour slider ever so slightly towards red. Then take a very subtly, slightly darker shade than the one we just had. Slightly more saturated and slightly darker. Then we are going to shade in the rough triangle of the nose, like so. And then jump up to a really big brush, about 400 in this case, it's quite large. And then gently, we're going to basically do a bit of a raccoon mask around the eyes and the cheeks, just to put in a little bit of blush and give like that kind of blush of life, which I find with very simple, or with the flat shaded colouring, it can help to make characters look a little bit less wooden, you know? Oh, thank you so much, Cyber Spectre, for helping keep this hype train going. Thank you so much. And don't worry, we all have to lurk at times. I do it all the time because I'm a supremely busy person right now. Okay, and you can see it's very subtle, but it can help quite a lot to put that little blush in. This character is very pale, intentionally in quite a gothic way, so I'm not making it too intense. There we go. Like you can see with this character, the kind of blush eye mask is quite a lot more pronounced, but their skin's a lot more richer hued. Okay, so, oh, I've got a level 1 hype trainer mode. Let's use that, whatever, let's go. It is getting close to 2 years, actually. That's wow. That's wow. Yeah, that's wow. Thank you so much to Trace512 for the follow. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Oh, yes, sorry. I completely missed that. Yeah, so the brush I use in Photoshop, I know it might not be as helpful for Clip Studio Paint, is the fourth one down, hard round pressure size, with the transfer setting turned on, like so. I don't know if Clip Studio Paint has a similar setting like transfer. If it does, I very much recommend you use it. It just makes my life a million times easier to make the pen a lot more responsive with pressure. Okay, next stage is to start adding some shading. So starting from the blush colour, I find the middle of the nose is the best place to kind of eye drop from. Once again, inching that slider ever so slightly towards red and grabbing, this time, quite a bit more of a drop, darker colour. In the first place I add shadow is in the front corners of the eyes, kind of going up to the eyebrow like so. Again, very soft, and having that transfer on basically means I can really vary how harsh I want the strokes to be. Then I'm just going to, ow, sorry, I just caught my finger, ow. I was building a sofa yesterday and managed to trap my finger in between some very heavy wooden parts, and it's painful. Anyway, back to art. Yeah, so I use a small brush and I basically outline where the lower and upper eyelid are, and that kind of helps, again, pick out the eyes there in the socket. It wasn't too bad. It was me being a fool, but trying to do it all on my own. We were trying to move it and move it after I'd built it, which was a terrible idea. And yeah, just kind of got a little bit stuck. Alright, and like I say, do the same thing on the other eye. And sometimes I add a little bit of shadow to the other eye because this eye is slightly more in shadow than the first one, but keeping it fairly subtle. Oh, it's okay. I had it in a plaster or band-aid, whichever you want to say, most of the evening, and it's fine. It's just got, like, to spare the gory details. You know, sometimes when you cut yourself and it gets stuck on, like, bits of fabric and it's like, ugh, gross. Okay, next thing I do is I add some shadow around the bottom of the nose. Quite simple, just all those areas that would naturally be in shadow and cast shadow. Kind of ends up looking like a bit of a wonky triangle, sort of. Oh, and one thing I haven't done yet, I add a little highlight to the tip of the nose inside this little diamond, which I marked out in the line art. That can also help bring out to the nose. Moving swiftly on. Hey, CP Jess, thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. I have lovely, kind supporters. Thank you all so much. Next place to add some shadow is under the bottom lip, just on top of the chin. Now, depending on the face shape of the character you're working on, this might be quite pronounced or it might be quite subtle. For this chap, I don't want it to be too pronounced. I want it to be fairly subtle. It kind of comes with time studying different face shapes, but everyone's a bit different, and sometimes you want different effects. Cool, so with that done, that's the facial features first pass with shading done. So what I'm doing now, I'm just adding a little bit of shadow around the hair, where the hair is casting on the face. And then we'll do the same with the neck. Thank you so much to Vanza64 and RedWolf82225 for the follows. I hope you enjoy the stream. So once we've kind of carefully gone around the shape of the neck there, we can kind of just loosely add in the shadow cast by the neck, coming around the side there. And finally, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a little bit of that blush tone to the ears. Tips of ears, I find, often look a little bit more lifelike if you blush them ever so slightly. And then we're going back in with the first shade colour to add like a first layer of shadow. Like so. Sometimes it can help. I do recommend, if you're kind of starting out colouring, having some direct reference up to look at, especially when it comes to ears, because ears are super weird. No one really knows how ears work. Anyone who says they do is lying. Alright, well there is our first level of simple shading. Then what I do next is I'll move on to a slightly darker tone. Thank you so much to Hecla Linia, I hope I said that right, for the follow. Cool, so once again, every time I go a bit darker, I inch towards kind of pinks. So we're going to do that again. We're going to grab a darker tone. And kind of repeat the steps, but a little bit more controlled. So for example, I'm going to add some darker pink, but just in the corners of these eyes. And a little bit more on this side, purely because it's slightly more in shadow. Then I'm going to do the same, but coming down from the corners. This kind of gives a slight smoky eye effect. Kind of zoom out, see that kind of brings the eyes out a nice little bit. Yeah, ears and noses, absolutely. Noses are also witchcraft. It took me years and years to work out how on earth to draw or paint noses. So don't worry if you're not quite there yet. It takes a while. And yeah, basically we're just kind of accenting where we've already shaded with slightly darker colours, just to kind of bring out the really shadowy areas. I'm also just going to put a tiny bit of light shading in the mouth corners, because they kind of like, they always kind of go back into the face a bit. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at describing things, so if anyone has any questions at all, I'm always happy to kind of answer any art questions and stuff. Although I must reiterate, this is just kind of my way of doing things. Like, there are countless better techniques out there. This is just kind of how I find is a good way to build up a good kind of shade. And again, the neck's going to be quite dark, and I want that nice contrast of lights and darks, so I'm actually going to almost make this whole part the darker pink. Because contrast is fun. Contrast is your friend, use it. And then once again, we're just going to bring the darker coloration into the ear as the last spot. And there we go. That's the simple skin shading. That's kind of all I do at this point. You can kind of see how I've done the same thing on this other character. Same principle, just kind of transferred across lots of different characters. You can really, it's really quite interchangeable. Okay, next steps. What do I do next? Well, the next thing I'll probably do is give the lips some attention. What I tend to do for more masculine characters is the top lip will still always be darker than the surrounding kind of skin tone. So I will usually take like an in-between of the two shadow colours I've used and use that to fill in the top lip. Like so. The bottom lip, sometimes you want to leave it very pale. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a layer of slightly darker than the skin tone first, because leaving it completely pale isn't particularly accurate and I prefer to add a bit more. Then I'm going to take the colour of the top lip and transfer that to the corners of the bottom lip where I want to do a bit of shading. There we go, and there we have some lips. Again, keeping it fairly simple in this style. One thing I do want to add is maybe a teensy bit more shading on the corners of the top lip. But overall, you don't want to go overboard with shading in this style, or it can look a little bit overdone. Do I live stream every piece I work on? No, I don't. If I did that, I would be streaming every day for many hours until 4 o'clock in the morning. So no, I don't stream every piece I work on. I also have a lot of projects which are NDA. I've got some contracts at the moment I'm working for. And obviously if you're on an NDA, you can't share it. So yeah, I'm working on quite a few secret things right now. When I'm able to talk about them, I will be doing so a lot because I'm very excited. But for now, I only really stream quite a small proportion of what I'm working on. So I stream on Wednesdays and Fridays for about an hour and a half each, and that is a very, very small proportion of the hours I spend drawing every week. Okay, next stage, I am going to look at the eyes. And what colour eyes does this character have? Greenish gold, that's fun, I like that. So when I am painting in this style, I have a different approach to eyes than I do with my other styles. I usually start dark and go to light. But with this style, because it's a slightly more simple colouring style, I start with a very pale green, actually. I don't know why I started doing this, but I quite liked the effect it gave. It's one of those things I just did, looked kind of cool, so I stuck with it. There's not really much reason behind it. I don't know, maybe a colour theorist could tell you why I did it. But yeah, so I start with a very pale creamy green, and then I will grab a kind of mid-pinky burgundy, just to shade around the edges. Just where the eye is picking up some shadows, like so. I might actually stick a tiny bit more shadow on this one. There we go. And then we can colour the eyes themselves. So we've got kind of greenish gold. So that I'll probably start with green and we'll work our way to gold. So beginning with a very dark green, I'm just going to fill in the whole kind of iris area. Forgot how to speak for a second there. Oh, actually, what I will do before I forget is just colour in those little corners. There we go, that's better. And so once I've got the iris kind of marked in, what I do next is I make a new layer on top of the line art, so above the line art, and I am going to grab a very dark, almost black. It doesn't matter too much what colour it's in, usually I keep it the same colour as the iris. And then I use this just to kind of doll up a pupil in there. And then dropping down to a smaller brush, gently I will draw some colours over the top. Draw kind of the dark colour over the top to kind of integrate the pupil with the top half of the eye. And then going down to a smaller brush still, I can use this very dark colour just to make the kind of eyes that bit darker. I kind of use it like eyeliner, if that makes sense. And then remaining on this layer, we can start working up to gold, as I mentioned. So we'll start with a slightly lighter shade of green. And what I'm going to do, big brush, we're going to keep it fairly large for now. Just gently shade around the pupil. And then we'll work up again, working towards our gold. And this time I'm going to go down to a smaller brush. I'm going to draw a ring around the pupil. This really helps it kind of stand out with a bit of contrast. And then we'll have some radiating out from that center. Do the same over here. And then finally, we'll grab that gold color, go down to an even smaller brush, go around some of that ring we just drew just on one side, and then add the gold flecks. But it's best to kind of concentrate this gold on one side, as like that. I might actually just make this side a bit heavier because that side is. There we go. And the very last thing I do with eyes in this style is I grab a sort of cyan that's almost white, but not quite white. A small brush, and then I'll add a little glint of light that kind of goes over the side of the eye and onto the whites, as I find that really gives them a lot of life. And there you go, there's some eyes. What I'm going to do is just want to tidy up these nose lines. You can see it's a bit fluffy down there. There we go. A little bit neater. Thank you so much to JP and Eat Cosmos. Oh, I think that's like II Cosmos, II, like the Roman numerals maybe? Anyway, thank you very much for following. I hope you enjoy the stream. So, with eyes complete, the next thing to tackle is eyebrows. As you can tell, I like to kind of fill in the facial features before I move on. This particular character has a very cool bluish black, kind of Sasuke-esque coloured hair. So that's kind of what we're going to work with here. I'm going to start with a very dark purpley greyish black. As the important thing, when you're painting black hair, never just use a dark grey or true black. It can look very washed out. Always kind of sneak a bit of colour in there. Usually when I'm painting black, I will be using a very, very dark blue, purple, or kind of magenta. I know other artists like to use other colours, but those are the three that kind of work for me. And yeah, we're just very kind of simply filling in the marked area for the eyebrows we left earlier. And eyebrows instantly make a face a lot more intense, so they're quite important to get in there. And then as we're kind of getting a bit lighter, we're going to allow a bit more of that bluey light to come through. And I'm going to add highlights on the overlines layer, so we're not kind of constricted by the line art. Like so. And there we have some eyebrows. What I will do, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of shadow to them. Because we've got some areas that are a little bit more in shadow than others. There we go. Lovely. Okay. The next thing to do is paint the hair. Before I do that, I'm just going to mess around with increasing the saturation of the skin tone a tiny bit. And I quite like that. I don't like the skin being too washed out. I quite like a heavy saturation in my colours. I'm also going to save because Photoshop could decide to drop dead at any moment. Oh, AMC Dom, thank you so much. That's very kind. And yeah, we are making great progress with this one. So, colouring the hair is kind of the next main step. So, making a new layer underneath the skin. I'm being incredibly bad. You can tell I haven't actually named any of these layers. It's because with my process, I use a similar kind of workflow for most of my pieces, so I kind of just know which layers are which. But for the sake of everyone in the stream, I will go ahead and name them. We have skin, which is underneath line art, and the line art is underneath what I like to call overlines, which is sort of little details which benefit from going on top of the line art. And hair always goes under skin. Wonderful, so let's just get started. I'm going to grab that sort of dark purple that I was using for the base tone for the eyebrows. And we're just going to get stuck in painting in the base for the hair. And because it's underneath the skin layer, it basically means we can't paint over the top of it, which means being neat earlier saves us time now. And I still fill in base colours as if I'm painting traditionally. Doing it by hand. And yeah, this is the part that's basically colour by numbers. You're just painting inside the lines and kind of creating a closed section of paintwork. Naming layers is very big and it's very grown up and clever, and I do recommend people do it. I am lazy, but when I'm streaming I try to do it so people can kind of keep track of where my layers are. Because it does help to kind of see where everything is and how everything stacks up. Now you can see a few places where the skin has gone over the line art. That's fine, that's not a worry at all. When we finish painting in the base layer for the hair, we can go in and basically tidy that up. And this chap's got very long and luscious locks. Main body of the hair ends about here, but I tend to kind of alter the hair silhouette once I've got the base down, so I can kind of play with it a bit more. You can kind of experiment once you've got the base colours in place. Ooh, as you can see, there's a bit of line art missing here, so let's quickly pop that in, making sure to grab the same colour of the base line art. I think a 14 will do, just because that hair actually splits there, so there should be a tiny bit more skin in that space. I always make these kind of mistakes, so please no one think that I don't, because I often see stuff that I haven't noticed or I've messed up and I need to go back in and alter, like so. Okay, back to the hair. And we've got these kind of little strands that are coming down over the chin and onto the kind of neck area. And sometimes when you're painting long strands of hair like this, it's easier to kind of erase paint to get a nice sharp point than it is to try and get a sharp point straight off the bat. So Photoshop isn't the best at giving you sharp end lines. So for example, my brush strokes tend to end kind of abruptly. So that's one downside of Photoshop, but look at me, I'm still using it. Thank you so much, KK a day and Freeper FTW for following, and also Cat Patches. How did I miss you all? I'm so sorry. I am so bad at painting inside lines. Lines? I'm thinking about Magic the Gathering again. My hands are super unsteady and I have pretty bad hand-eye coordination. So that's why I use lots of short strokes rather than trying to fill it all in one go. Oh, Zenfire, thank you so much. I really enjoyed working on that commission. As everyone knows by now, I adore tieflings with all my heart, and I would give them the world if I could. Oh, yes, I do have a YouTube. Let me just pop in a link. I do upload VODs. I dropped a load of them on there last week. I've been really bad at keeping it up to date, but I've made a resolution to get better. So this stream will be up there hopefully later this evening. If not, it should be tomorrow or later this week. I try to do it the same day if I can, but sometimes stuff comes up. So yeah, do check that out. I've got some other stuff on my YouTube as well. If you like Destiny, I've done a load of Destiny content on there. I'm going to be adding some new videos on there very soon. Been a bit slower at getting those done recently just because I've had so much work to do. But hopefully I'll be able to continue editing those very soon. And I'll be able to start uploading my new series on constructing LARP costumes, which I'm very, very excited to do. Anyone who's remotely familiar with me knows that I'm a massive LARP fan. I haven't been able to LARP for the last year and a half. But I'm really looking forward to the LARP season starting again, which means needing new costumes. So my sewing machine is out and I am back into crafting. That's okay, Velma. Seriously, don't worry about it. Patreon sketches have been a bit delayed actually at the moment. I am planning to get a load out this week. I've got a deadline with one of my NDA projects coming up, so that's been eating a lot of my time and energy, but we're getting there, and I'm very pleased with the work I've been doing. I'm very excited to be able to share it with you all. Okay, finishing off the last few strands of hair down here. And then we'll fill in these areas. Bonk. Just colour over these annoying, ugly little lines it leaves behind. Like so. And then we can fill in this little strand that's coming down here. Oh yeah, LARP is really difficult. I had never really worn wigs either. And most of my characters don't actually wear wigs. I basically design my LARP characters so I can kind of maximize how comfortable I can be whilst playing them. You know, if you're already kind of thinking about LARPing as your character, the last thing you want to have distracting you is like, oh, this wig's really itchy, or like, oh, this bit of my costume is so uncomfortable. You want to make sure you're comfortable. So a lot of my characters started off very simple, and characters that like I was fairly close to already. I've kind of moved to the point now where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get wigs, I'm gonna get like little fangs and teeth and horns and all the things, but you don't need to kind of go in that deep when you first start off. Okay, I'm just going to add a wee bit more detail in a few spots in the hair. Just breaking up the silhouette a bit. It can help not to have like too much solid surface for the hair. I'm actually going to undo that because I think it was better before. But yeah, this is basically where we're going to start with the hair. So what happens once I've got all this filled in is firstly I'm going to go back to the skin layer and do a little bit of cleaning up. Particular LARP places I recommend. So I haven't played that many systems. I was planning to attend a lot more just before lockdown hit. And then, of course, wasn't really able to do anything because COVID. The main LARP that I do is Empire LARP, which is a UK-based kind of fantasy LARP. It's a huge, you have like several thousand people go, obviously, which is why it hasn't been running. And it's very, very accessible. There are kind of fairly strict briefs for costumes, but there are loads of different nations you can play, so lots of different inspirations you can draw from. It's camping, a lot of festival style LARP is, so it's up to you whether that's kind of like your thing or not. But I find it's really chill. I really enjoy it. And it's great because I catch up with a lot of friends there. You get to go on adventures and stuff. It's very kind of high fantasy heroic, especially the faction that I play. And if you're not a fan of camping, I recommend looking at parlor LARPs, they tend to be less high fantasy and more political. I've done a few Vampire the Masquerade parlor LARPs, which usually take place in like smaller settings. You'll have like maybe around 20 to 50 people at those kind of events. For example, there's a really big VTM LARP called Convention of Thorns, which takes place in Poland, I want to say. A lot of the Witcher LARPs also take place in Poland, but that one is set inside a beautiful castle. There's also kind of cool stuff going on like that, which are more like inside venues. There's also a load of magic school style LARPs. There's College of Wizardry, of another very popular one. There's a small one that's just started in the UK called Marilyn. And they're all definitely worth checking out. The only ones that I know for sure that are planning to run this year, I know Empire is hoping to run this year. And that's kind of about it. Obviously, it's very difficult to run a LARP right now in the current climate. Oh, sorry. It's called Marilyn. More like, it's kind of spelled like the word Merlin. I'll see if I can spell out in chat. I think it's spelled like this. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's how it's spelled. Anyway, what I'm doing with the hair here is, once you've kind of got a basic shape down, what you want to do is create a gradient using kind of pale, slightly more saturated color on top, and then a really dark shadow color around the back. Once that's in place, making sure once again that this little button's clicked, the alpha lock, you can go in, add a Gaussian blur, just to kind of soften it and get that nice gradient style. Yeah, I know there are tons in the US as well. For example, there is a VTM US LARP that is the Night in Question, which I know is quite popular. And there are more than that. I'm just not particularly plugged into US and Canada-based LARPs, I'm afraid. But they're definitely there. There's lots going on. Alright, so next stage is to eye drop from the darkest part of the gradient you just made. And, whoops, the darkest part. And then the first thing I tend to do is I'll add just some blanket shadow in areas which are kind of casting shadow on themselves, such as the inside of kind of fringy bits that are lopping over. Then, this is the only time I will use a different brush. This is a brush pack you can find if you Google Lewin fur brushes. I believe it's on Gumroad, so if you can throw a little bit of coin to the creator, it would make a massive deal to them, I'm sure. It's just the first brush in the pack, Fur Pointy End, my favourite. You want to grab that, and basically you can just use this brush to get a really nice effect when you're shading and rendering hair. I often start from the hairline radiating outwards as like a first port of call, because your hairline is always a little bit more shadowed. And then from there, I basically just bring shadows into wherever I think shadows will be. It's kind of an intuitive thing at this point. But when you're starting out, I do recommend, again, having plenty of reference available. You can kind of see it very quickly renders up very nicely. Now, it's a very, very simple technique, but I do find it's one of my favorite ways to render hair. Thank you so much to the Chick25 for the follow. I hope you enjoy the stream. Okay, so the top bit's shaded a bit. As we kind of move down to hair that's already darker, we're going to need to grab some darker colours for shadows, like so. And often you'll have shadows creep around from the back, so you can kind of, from the back and the outside, just draw inwards towards the rest of the head. Yeah, I mean, go for it. There are a ton of events going on in the UK, and I know that the US and the UK differ quite a lot in terms of rules, especially when it comes to LARP weapons. I know I've heard from a lot of my US friends that weapons in UK LARP systems are allowed to be a lot more realistic. They're still obviously latex and foam, so they're completely harmless. But you can kind of get weapons that look like proper greatswords and stuff. Where I know in the US there are different rules regarding kind of like bother sticks and stuff. Okay, we're nearly there. And thank you so much to the Chick25 for the bits. That's incredibly kind. It honestly, every time it does mean a ton to small careers, and thank you so much. It really makes our day. Well, like, just as harmless, like, as if you had, like, a metal tankard or something. Like, I know that I could do a ton more damage with my character's pewter drinking tankard than I could with my foam sword. Speaking of which, where is my... Oh, that's over there. I would show you if it was a bit closer, but I'd have to get up and take my headphones off, and you'd see my, like, pajama trousers, and that's, like, a whole thing I'm not going into right now. Okay, that is the first stage of shading the hair. You can see that the shadows are looking quite nice. The next thing to do is to add highlights, kind of the reverse of what we just did. We're just eyedropping colour from the brightest part of the hair now rather than the darkest, and using that to add highlights in places where the light would naturally be a little bit stronger. Again, don't go too overboard with this or it can look over-rendered. Just in a few kind of key places we'll get the idea across. There we go. And one of the last things I do is I will then grab a shade lighter than what I've just been using and use that as sort of like a extra highlight layer just around the areas where the light hits the brightest. And this is more where we're going to get that bluey tinge from. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, can I see how it's coming together? We can also add some in a few kind of strategic places elsewhere. It doesn't just have to be on the crown. Oh yeah, I know. I'm just messing around as well. Like, in some places the safety is absolutely warranted in LARP. For example, I know a few people who are archers, and even with LARP safe arrows, even LARP archery can be quite dangerous. You really have to be very careful and conscientious of everyone around you. Okay, so yeah, there is our hair for this lovely, very goth vibes elf. The next thing to do is to move down and take a stab at this armor. So it's finally time for a new layer. I'm going to call this neck because this is going to be the sort of kind of where the tunic has ruched up above the breastplate. So for that, this is going to be very dark. I want this proper dark for them goth vibes. So going back to my usual brush, we are just going to go ahead, whoops, without bringing up brush settings, and fill this in. There we go. And this also gives us an opportunity to see other areas where the rest of the work needs tidying up a little bit. For example, here around the neck we can trim back where the skin is slightly going over its allotted area. Same over here, although not too badly. That was a bit hard. We do have a bit of invasion from the hair, so let me just cut that back a wee bit in around a few places. In fact, I'm kind of thinking because the hair is so dark, I kind of maybe need the neck to be lighter, so I might make this sort of grey. Yeah, that works. Kind of a pinkish grey. That'll be perfect. And once that's in, we can shade it. So this is how I usually approach adding shadow to clothing. I will create a layer with clipping mask on top. I'll set it to a multiply layer. I will grab a colour that is a very, very pale pink, and I will dump that on the whole layer, which just darkens the whole thing. Oh yeah, Verma. The flowers down here are part of the leather breastplate. Obviously, for this style, I only kind of show the collar area, but I really wanted to show the kind of carved roses that are kind of patterning this character's breastplate because I just like the style. And they will largely probably be a slightly different color than the leather, but fairly subtle. It's like when you dye leather, it changes color, but it's not too hugely different. Anyway, once I've got that multiply layer in, I want to grab a white brush. I want to make sure my brush size is quite nice and large. And then rather than adding shadow to a piece and shading it, I like to take light away. Take shadow away to kind of show where the light is hitting, where the light's breaking through. And I find that this is a much more, a flowing way to shade pieces than adding shadow first. Okay, and that kind of starts to give us some shape and movement in to this area. And you can blend it in a bit as well. Like you can make it nice and smooth. There's kind of quite a lot you can do with it. For example, here I'm adding a slightly darker shadow color to the areas that are in more intense shadow. And there we go. Okay, so let's work on the last portion of this chat, the armor. Now, the commission told me the armor is black. So again, I'm going to stick to these kind of reds that are derived from blacks that are derived from reds rather than blues. Why? So I'm choosing this because obviously the hair color is a black kind of derived from blue. So in this way we can make both kind of colors black, but there'll be enough hue difference between them that they won't look too similar. That being said, I might mess around with bits if I find they are too similar. It just kind of depends on how it looks when it comes out. Oh, JimKid75, no problem at all. I'm very pleased that you are liking them so far. If you just got here, here's a quick sneak peek at the Dragonborn character. I'll probably be moving on to lining them once I'm done colouring this guy. Yeah, I find that like black clothing and black accessories are one of the hardest things to paint. A, to make them look nice, and B, so they stand out, especially if you've got a character that wears a lot of black colours. It's quite hard to like, okay, well what am I going to do? I can't make them everything the same colour, or it's all going to just merge into one amorphous kind of gloop. And I find the best way to deal with that is to derive your blacks from different colours. After all, as I say, like there is no kind of true black, as it were. All kind of black colours in nature are kind of drawn from other hues. What I'm doing here is I'm basically just, I want a slightly nicer silhouette. So I remove the bottom part of that armour, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same on the line art. I really love blacks that derive from dark purples or pinks. I think that's one of my favourite ways to paint black. There we go, that's got a slightly better bottom silhouette on it. Okay, so now what we can do, first of all, I'm going to change the neck material colour because that is too similar. So I might go back to my original plan of making this sort of grey, just because I want that contrast with the black armour underneath. Exactly, yeah, Zenfire, you got it, exactly. Cool, so, same thing as before. It's getting a little bit slow because I've got quite a ton of layers going on in this piece now. We're going to make that multiply layer. Fill it all in, like so. What I might do, the neck shadows are a little bit too saturated almost. So I'm just going to turn those down. There we go. Then we're going to do exactly what we did earlier. We're going to go in with a white brush. And essentially, by doing this, we are erasing shadows. Just because I prefer this technique to adding shadows, it's kind of weird. It also means that if you're painting it with white instead of actually using the eraser tool, it means what you can do, which is quite cool, is if you eyedrop, you're eyedropping between this gradient of pink to white, which basically means that you can blend a heck ton easier. And this bit's going to take a little bit longer. As you can see, I've got this rose, and the way it's been carved into the leather means it's going to have a bit of 3D of its own, particularly the edge of the petals, which will be more raised up. So yeah, we're quickly going to go in and kind of add the embossing to the rose pattern. I just realised I've got no food in the house, so I might have to do takeaway tonight. I was meant to do shopping yesterday and I just ran out of time. And then just adding a little, we'll just take away some shadow for the stem of that other rose bit. You can kind of see now how that's kind of looking on the black leather. It does be like that sometimes, you know, you just kind of forget. Then a few of the other areas that are kind of standing out a bit, we can add a bit more light. And over on the buckle over here, I'm also just slightly erasing some of the shadow on the buckle. A lot of the buckle is going to be rendered in the overlines layer, but alright. And there we go. What I can do now is we're going to bring in some darker shadows. I'm not sure what takeout I'll do. We actually have some great options where we've moved to. There is a Wagamama nearby, and as long as you use a different email address every time you do it, you can save quite a nice bit of money, and I love Wagamama. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow from the neck scarf bit. And just a little bit of shadow on some of the embossing detail. And there we go, you can kind of see the roses as they appear in the... oh yeah, do you not have Wagamama in the US? You poor things. It's wonderful. It's like, it's kind of like a Japanese food. Very like big chain here in the UK. I like it very much. They do the most fantastic udon. To the point that I like it so much, I learned how to make it at home. So the one thing I don't get from Wagamama anymore is the ramen, because I can make ramen as good as Wagamama now. Cool, okay, so we've done the kind of rendering on that black leather, and the next thing to do, the last thing to do, is going to be the buckles. Buckles are so much fun, they're one of my favourite things to shade. So let's get stuck in with, starting with a dark grey. We are just gonna fill in basically the full area of the buckle with the dark grey. And then, here's the fun part, we're going to go up to the overlines layer. I'm going to start by grabbing a slight dark tone. Just use it to roughly add shadow to sections of the metal. I'm going for kind of silver buckles, it feels like that's the appropriate colour for this chap. The chicken ramen is so good. One of my favourite things to home cook is I really like to make barbecue pork ramen. Like, I will marinate the pork in barbecue sauce, soy sauce, honey, lots of honey. I use honey in everything. And then cook that up for a nice long time, so it's really nice, almost slow cooked. And then I was recently introduced to how amazing dashi is in making ramen broth. I didn't realize what a big difference it made. So now I definitely can't make ramen without some dashi. And then just adding the kind of metallic sheen on the buckle there. Okay, and then finally some really bright spots of light just in a few little places to really get that kind of metallic texture. And there we go. There we have our rather gothic looking elven chap with their cool kind of rose patterned leather armor. So what I'm going to do now, there's a few more steps I'll take before this chap is finished. They are as followed. What we're going to do is we're first going to colour the line art. We're going to make sure it has been locked. And we are going to grab a kind of mid burgundy pink colour. Grab a huge brush and paint the entire boy. Then, because some areas will require a darker colour, we're going to do the same thing with a darker paint in areas where you've got like the hair and stuff, around the eyes. But as a general rule, that's what he kind of looks like. So then we're going to grab all of that together that we just worked on in one group, make a layer above it, clip it down to the group, set it to overlay, and then we're going to add some highlights. So we're going to grab for now like a fairly rosy, orangey, yellow colour. And we're going to grab a size, no it's too small, I think I want about a 30, yeah 28 will do. And we're basically just going to add some edge lights. Just on the sides. And this can just help kind of pick out the edges. My computer is getting quite slow with this file, but we're almost done. You can kind of see it's starting to chug a bit. And we're just gonna add a little bit to the nose as well. And the eyes. And then graduating up to a large brush, we're just going to add some of this highlight on the hair as well. And there we have it. Two lovely D&D characters side by side. I'm just going to save again, because those two characters are basically done now. So the choice is, do we work on the turtle next for the next like half an hour, or do I work on the Dragonborn? Question is, yeah, which of those two should I work on next, chat? You tell me. Which would you prefer me to see? Both are going to be line art. So yeah, let me know which one you want me to work on for a bit. Okay, we've got one vote for Dragon, 2 votes for Dragon. It's going in Dragon's favour. It's very much going in the Dragon's favour. So I think, yeah, we're just going to start on the Dragon since Dragon seems popular. Wonderful, so it's time to do some line art. What I'm going to do first, we need to turn down the opacity of the sketch so it's not too intense. We need to make a new layer above it. Grab our line art colour, which in this case is about 2/3 down towards black from grey. Doesn't matter what colour's on this side because it's completely unsaturated. And we are going to select my line art brush. This is a situation where I am using a slightly different brush to the one I was using for colouring. I'm using dry media brushes, and it's called the Kai Ultimate Pencil. I'm pretty sure these came with my copy of Photoshop, but if you Google them, you should be able to find them. And I usually have a 14, although I might change that because obviously Dragonborn are a lot more detailed in some ways, with all the little scales and stuff, so I might go down to a 12. And then this brush is really nice. It emulates drawing with like traditional pencils, so I really recommend it. Forgive me, my throat's getting all scratchy. You can tell I haven't spoken to people in person much lately. And I really like that the fact that this brush does emulate pencils. It means I can do things like hatching, which is one of my favorite techniques when I'm doing these kind of line arts. But yeah, it makes a nice change actually. I really love painting draconic characters. It's just fun. I've been doing an awful lot more creature painting lately. I can't really show any of it yet, but I've been doing it. And it's been quite a nice breath of fresh air. We've got these little kind of brow horns pointing up from the eyebrow. Like so. I'm just kind of adding hatching to add some extra kind of texture with the horns as well. There we go, a nice kind of gnarly brow going on there, and I'm gonna just move across and work on the other side as well while we're here. Oh, Fomer, thank you so much. I love dragons. I used to paint them. It was like the thing I'd paint more than anything else as a kid. I just loved dragons to bits. I was that kind of a nerdy child. And, you know, I don't paint them as much as I did when I was younger now, so it's nice to have Dragonborn. Get his little nostrils in there. Have I done an Asian-inspired dragon? I did a few creatures like that a long time ago. I haven't done any recently. My current Dragonborn character is again quite different. They are more inspired by Maniraptorans, which is to say creatures like Velociraptor, so more like feathered dragon vibes, a little bit kind of Coatl. But no, I haven't really done like Asian long-inspired Dragonborn. At least I don't think I have, not recently. His little cheek spines. Yeah, I find that like it's very easy to make Dragonborn look quite friendly and approachable, you know? I think all you need to do that is just close the damn mouths. Like, a lot of people paint dragons like perpetually screaming. And if you just draw a dragon with a closed mouth, they look quite wise. Again, I like to build my line art up of lots of small, feathery strokes because I find it just makes life a whole lot easier than if I'm trying to get all my lines perfect in one stroke. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I've got dyspraxia, so my hand-eye coordination is not fantastic. And doing it this way, I find myself a lot happier with how things turn out, and I end up having to redo stuff less. I'm kind of hoping to play my Dragonborn tomorrow. I should have D&D running tomorrow, and she's going to be hilarious. Kind of like a noble-born, Dragonborn, high society sorcerer is not ready to live life in the hard lane, so to speak. That made no sense. I've used the wrong analogy entirely, but it's gonna be fun. This Dragonborn is actually a copper Dragonborn. So I did kind of a bit of research with the horn design, and copper Dragonborn have this cool, almost like scaled horn look, which is what I'm basically trying to get across here. little bit too blunt. There we go. There we go. So just going to add a little bit of kind of wear and tear. And then we can work on the other one. And of course you can just about see the start of the scales going down the back as well. Okay, you can kind of see how that's coming together. If I take off the sketch and put it back. Hey, Second W, welcome. Hope you're having a good day. And just starting on some of these throat plates as they kind of come around. I love adding texture to these sorts of elements with Dragonborn. Like, you can really do some cool, gnarly textures. You can see in some places I'm actually completely ignoring my line art to basically just redistribute the scales, but that's also fine. Yeah, that's roughly where the bottom of the neck ends. And we've basically just got a little bit of detail where the scales come in at the corners. There we go, just adding some kind of secondary scales in, and then we can do these big hunky plates coming out from behind the head. I didn't realise copper dragons are quite so thorny, but I really like kind of the design. Initially I thought this chap was bronze dragon inspired, because I get bronze and copper dragons confused all the time. Oh, wow, thank you so much. Oh, that's so exciting. Second W, thank you so very much for that. I am super excited for that to arrive, especially because the weather here in the UK is so darn unpredictable right now. Who knows what it might be doing any day. Again, just adding a little bit of kind of weathering and chips to these scales as we go. Thank you so much to Craft01 and the Mighty Pedro for the follows. The Vault of Glass Jacket. No, I haven't. I really haven't looked up that much about the new season yet. I really need to. Other than, of course, Fallen Babies, which is, well, Elixni Babies, which is adorable. I love the Elixni Babies. This dragon is just all plates. Anyway, there we go. That kind of descends into the neck of their hood. I will definitely take a look in a bit. I'm very excited to see this. And then we've got the edge of some plate armor just kind of peeking out through the cloak I wanted to show. So it's very rigid, obviously. And I'm going to add just a little bit of flair to it as well, I think. There we go. And then we can basically just have the this cloak, this mantle that they're wearing. Just coming over the top. Oh, I'm so excited for events like that to be running again. I need something to incentivize me to work on my Eris Morn cosplay. because next time Comic-Con comes around and I feel good about going, I really want to cosplay Erismorn. Alright, we're almost done on this one. We've just got this kind of pin on the front of the mantle to do. So let me just grab my reference for that yet. In fact, what I can do is I can grab, because it's from the same group as this party, I can just grab this, because this is the same design that's going to be on the pin. It's kind of like a knightly order, you could say. So what I'm going to do is just put it in roughly the right place. About that. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to do this on its own new layer just so I can mess around and move it around a little bit. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Verma. Yeah, Nightbot has been a bit voracious in its banning recently, so... Hey, Dungeon Tomb! Yeah, he's actually... The drow I was working on my last stream is still in progress, so I might end up streaming them on Friday. We shall see. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically just trying to do a version of this motif that looks good for like the pin brooch, because that's obviously what this is, rather than just a design on the bandana. This time it's like a little pin. I really hope I go downstairs and find that Pokemon Snap has been delivered. We ordered it a few days ago and it's not here yet, and I really want to play it because it looks so calming and relaxing, and I could really do with that at the moment. Alright, there we go. There is the design for the pin. So I'm just going to clean up a few little areas, like so, and then just make the kind of edge piece for it. And there we have it. So we can finish kind of joining up the edges of the cloak now. And there's probably going to be like some folds kind of coming from the pin, as it is obviously attached to the garment. But there we have it. There is the line art for this character, all done and dusted. That was really good. We did that in like 20 minutes. Jeez. Cool. The question is, what do I do next? I feel like, really, I think I need to go and give this turtle some love. So we are going to go and line this turtle. Or at least start lining it, because, you know, I'm going to need to get some food at some point soon. So first thing to do, get rid of the kind of concept values. And we want to merge all of these layers together. Make sure it's still on multiply though. Turn that opacity down and basically do a thing very similar to what we just did with the Dragonborn. I'm first going to adjust my canvas size first. And make it a bit bigger. We're going to bump up to, yeah, let's go 3K. 3K seems good. And then we'll wait for Photoshop to manage that. There we go. I'm actually going to make sure this file is saved, and I am going to close it because then it should speed things up a little bit when that's done. Come on, Photoshop. I believe in you. Look at those tiny numbers going up. It takes so long to save. Lovely. Okay, now we're going to close that file so we can kind of put more bandwidth into this one. And the only difference with lining this chappy is I am not going to be using this brush. I'm going to go back to my main brush. But that's the only real difference. My smooth line art time. And yeah, this is the first time I think I've ever been commissioned to do a turtle, so very exciting. Again, those similar kind of to the Dragonborn, those reptilian eyes, which kind of have these deep set bags in them. I just want to add a few kind of crow's feet wrinkles as well, as this turtle is quite elderly. And yeah, it's kind of just very similar to like the same we were doing with the Dragonborn, with nice kind of quick, short strokes. We'll just basically do a neater version of the sketch underneath. And one thing the commission did request is to add some more wrinkles, so I can absolutely do that as we're going along. Just adding a little bit of edge for the beak. And then again, you want to add some kind of like weathering on the beak too. Turtles have quite kind of like, not, it's difficult. Their beaks are very dry. They're quite different to like a bird beak, for example. And the neck is somewhere we can definitely add lots of wrinkles for sure. Oh, you appreciate my naming convention? What, the file names? I've just done it in all caps. Turtle! Maybe I was just that excited when I started the file to actually draw one, because they're cute. It's gonna add some nice neck wrinkles coming down here. I find sometimes the thing to do with the wrinkles is never quite join a line. Wrinkles kind of, they really soften shapes quite a lot, and so you don't really want to join them off. So again, kind of see how it's coming together now without the sketch. Oh, second doubly, yeah, I know that feeling. As soon as I get my characters, my own D&D characters designed exactly how I want them, either the campaign never runs again, or they die. Such is the pain. There we go, just see so the other eye kind of stands out a bit. There we go. Second doubly, I totally have done that as well. Ages ago, I was DMing my homebrew, and I was so salty, and this was like 6 years ago. I was so salty that my last D&D character got killed off in our most recent game that I made them one of the literal pantheon in this new world that I'd been building. Cotton 1453. If you actually, I'm trying to think if you're exactly who I'm thinking of. If you let me know your character's name, I might still have them up the file around somewhere. Oh, Uriel Abtea, thank you so much. I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of like trying to chill out ahead of opening commissions, which is always terrifying. Because it's just a lot of dealing with people all at once. And like repeating the same thing a lot as well. Admin has never been my strong point, but we'll get through it, and commissions will be opening up fairly soon. Kind of actually want to bring the line of the neck out a bit now I come to think about it. Yeah, that's better. I prefer that. It makes the shoulders look a lot more believable. Cool. Speaking of the shoulders, this is one buff turtle. And we kind of want almost to get that kind of slight kind of scale effect going on, so I'm just gonna add in some very, very light kind of scales on some of the edges. Just to give it a little bit of texture in there. Oh, which one was Tennick? Ah, yes! Tennick is the file I just closed. There we go. There he is. He is on the left. So yeah, there you go. That's Tennick. I hope you like how he's turning out so far. Yeah, I know that feel. Like, I've been in a few, especially VTM. I'm in a VTM game that got put on hold a while back, and I'm so excited to play again. I really miss my character. Anyway, back to Turtle. I kind of want to just do this arm. I want to do this really buff arm. Little elbow there. Elbows are always super wrinkly. I've got super wrinkly elbows. Just gonna add a little bit of texture using some kind of hatching and stuff on the edges. And then we're going to basically bring this line down here. And then we've got these big old claws that are coming out. And I kind of use inspiration from real turtles for these. I kind of like how turtles have claws that are almost like halfway up their arms. I always find that's really fun. Yeah, that's kind of the problem with VTM. I'm very picky about who I play it with. It touches on a lot of heavy subjects, so I don't really play it with strangers. Like, when it's run well, it's fantastic and can be a really fun experience. But it definitely has plenty of issues, and yeah, I just curate who I play it with very carefully. There we go, just kind of getting these big old gnarly claws in. See, I actually did quite a lot of VTM LARP. There's a local VTM LARP group to me here in Bristol. And they're a really fun group. And basically, it was my first ever LARP experience, so I'll always have a soft spot for it. Kind of gonna have some knuckles going on here as well, so it's like drawing big old monster hands. It's good fun. I love playing Gangrel. I always end up playing Gangrel. They just are super easy for me to play compared to some of the others. I can never manage to play Ventru. I'm too chaotic and anti-establishment when it comes to VTM to manage to play Ventru. I've played Tremere as well, but usually my Tremere are quite, down with the system. There we go. Big old hand coming together. Adventures in Middle-earth seems really fun. I like the look of the board game. I don't have it, but it always looked really fun. Unfortunately, I've used up all of my board game allowance because I backed the new Everdell expansion Kickstarter recently. I'm still waiting for so many board game Kickstarters to arrive. Kind of add some suggestions of where the edges of the joints in the hand are. But yeah, there is one big old turtle claw. Oh, Sugar Crate, awesome. I'm sorry you had to deal with delays. The good thing about our new place is our internet seems more or less reliable here. I'm excited to run when it eventually comes out. There was a Kickstarter last year for the Root table. I don't know if any of you have played Root, the board game, but they are bringing out a tabletop RPG set in the same kind of world using Powered by the Apocalypse. And I'm so excited for it. I really want to run some simple kind of low rules, fun story games set in the world of Root. That's probably like, if I DM'd again on a stream, that's the game I'd want to use. Just going to put a little detailing in the lip of this old shale. And I think I've just realised what the time is. This is probably where I will have to clock off for now because I need to go and work out what on earth I'm going to eat tonight and see if I need to go to the shops, even though it's already 6:30. So I'm going to pop some links in chat, starting with Twitter. If you want to see my finished pieces, keep up to date with when I'm streaming or when I might be doing giveaways or opening commissions, Twitter is the best place to do so. It's where I kind of, it's like my social hub, I suppose. I also have Instagram. If you're more of an Instagram person, I post all my art on there, as well as much plant stuff, costume making, miniature painting, all that stuff can be found on my Instagram. ArtStation, if you just want to see my portfolio, ArtStation's the place to do it. Not much more to say than that. YouTube is where the VOD will be for today's stream, as well as lots of other previous streams if you want to go check them out, as well as some other stuff you can find on my YouTube. The music I use in my streams is all by an artist named Kai Engel. You can find it on the Free Music Archive. It's very, very chill. It's great ambient stuff to relax to, and it's just nice. It's like good royalty-free music. What else? What else have I missed out? The last thing, Patreon. If you are interested in supporting my work, a wonderful way to do it is Patreon or Twitch subs. If you have an Amazon Prime Twitch sub you're not using, it is really wonderful for small creators if you could throw it their way. Doesn't necessarily have to be me, but small streamers really appreciate it. Patreon is also a great way to support the work I do, and I'm planning to open up commissions probably either end of this week or start of next week. And basically, if you are a Patreon supporter of the Mero tier or above, you can go ahead and guarantee yourself a commission slot, as you basically have like 5 days to get in your request before I open up commissions generally. As a heads up, my commissions are going to be more limited this time. Last time I took commissions, I ended up with about 7-8 months worth to work through, and it was just a bit too much. So this time I'm going to be taking fewer slots, but hopefully I'll be opening more regularly, so a bit of a compromise there. But anyway, for now, that's probably everything I have today. I will be back on Friday at 5 p.m. UK time, the usual sort of usual schedule, and I'll be back with some more artwork, probably working on some different characters, who knows. So, until then, take care, stay safe, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye!